Hey everybody, so another really fun build here that I'm calling the Divine Crusader. I wanted to do a challenge for myself to make holy damage viable in PvP, so in case you didn't know, there is a bug that has been since the beginning of the game that FromSoft has never bothered to patch, which is that holy damage only benefits if the benefit in question directly affects the AR on your screen. So the DLC, however, did give us a new weapon that gives us an AR reflected benefit through the Sword of Light, which applies a 20% damage buff to holy damage. So we're going to make use of that, as well as the fact that the coated sword is 100% holy damage, in order to come up with a build that does obscene levels of damage with two long swords. We also make extensive use of healing spells, as the build can basically just concentrate on Faith and hit 80 Faith very early at level 150, while still having all the other stats required to get our to get the necessary like endurance and max vigor, all that good stuff. It's worth noting as well just the sheer amount of synergy in this build, both the fact that we're running a Wondrous Physic Flask that is synergizing directly and giving us two versions of 20% work stacking on top of each other, as well as the Talisman's Erdtree's Favor 2 stacking with the Crimson Amber Talisman for more health and the Stamina Talisman, if we choose to use that. That also synergizes with the Wondrous Physic tier, the Bloodsucking tier, which is draining our health, so having this amount of health is really working together very strongly. Finally, the amount of Faith scaling that we're getting, because we're only focusing on Faith, also makes our Seal extremely powerful and synergize with our spells, which heal both in healing over time and in burst heals, and both of those also are really beneficial when factored against the Bloodsucking tier, draining our HP. So yeah, the build just gets an incredibly dense amount of reward for its stat points, and comes together really well both for damage and survivability. So we'll start with taking a look at the equipment and the stat spread and all the parts that make up the build. The stats are extremely important, and there was just enough at level 150 to get everything that we needed out. We've running the standard 60 vigor, obviously, for maximum HP. Mind, we managed to get 21 points. Endurance, it must be 25 if you want to be able to carry all of these pieces of gear, as well as this armor, which I'll get into next as to why we want these pieces, while still retaining the ability to swap these two talisman slots on the fly as you will. So on PvE, typically I'm running the Sacred Scorpion Charm, but on PvP I'm either going to be running Poised if I need to hit the 89 breakpoint, depending on the weapon type, or if there's three of them and the odds are I'm going to get blended anyways, then I'll run one of these two Stamina Talismans, both of which are synergizing with the Erdtree's Favor +2. So endurance must be 25 points. Strength and dexterity don't really matter. I really wanted to have 16 dex so that I could have the option to two-hand some other options that are holy weapons, like this one, the Euphoria. Would have been nice if I could have had those, but we just didn't have the stats to do it while still hitting our next most important stat, which is Faith. So obviously Faith, as mentioned, is 100% benefiting the damage, with 100% synergy benefiting the coated sword. Given the bugs that exist in holy damage, if you didn't know, anything that does not directly affect your AR, in that top right there under the character status side, it doesn't work with holy damage. So this includes things like the Shard of Alexander boosting Ashes of War, charged attacks, charged spells, all of the unique action type ones like Claw Talisman, like jump attacks, running attack bonuses, guard counter bonuses, all of that stuff doesn't work with holy damage. So we're going to turn that negative into a positive and make use of the fact that it's forcing us to use talismans that wouldn't otherwise benefit a build, and also same goes for buffs. So with the DLC, we got the Sword of Light, which has a really cool Ash of War in the sense that it applies a body buff, not a weapon buff. So if we use this, it gives your holy damage a plus 20% bonus. However, you can swap off of it and still keep the bonus. So we're going to use that and synergize it with the Coated Sword, which is 100% holy damage, meaning that this buff, instead of only giving us about half of its intended benefit on the holy damage portion of this sword, we're going to get 100% of our attack power getting the benefit on the coated swords. And we're going to run 2 of them just for double pleasure there. Erdtree Seal is obviously being ran because we're running max faith, 80 faith. That's the whole point of this build, is to try to hit 80 faith at level 150. So naturally the Erdtree Seal is our go-to, and we actually do make extensive use of healing spells on this build just because we've got the faith to do it. With that in mind, before I skip ahead to that, let's take a look at the Wondrous Physic. So this thing has an incredible synergy on the coated sword. The Holy Shrouding Crack tier applies 100% of its bonus. It's 20% in PvE or 12.5% in PvP. The Blood-Sucking Crack tier also gives 20% to attack power. I don't know if this one gets reduced in PvP. I don't think so. It might, but either way, it doesn't really matter. The point is that both of these talisman or these tiers are 100% synergizing again on top of the coated sword. Now, because we're running so much faith again, and we're running a high health pool here, and we're running the Old Lord's Talisman, which helps with healing regeneration spells. They last longer and therefore do more work. They'll regenerate for longer. This helps offset the cost of the blood-sucking tier, as well as just having a very large health pool helps with that. So again, more synergy there. We'll also combine that with Golden Vow. So this gives a direct AR bonus. We'll apply Blessing of the Erdtree to help mitigate the tier, and then we would normally apply the Sword of Light as well. We've also got Heal from Afar if we ever need to. We should be trying to heal with as much as possible our FP rather than our Crimson Flask, because we're running a 6-8 split or 3-4 if we're doing invasions. You get much better discount on your healing when you use the Heal from Afar. It only costs you a little bit of, like maybe like, I don't know, a quarter or so of your FP. Let's see here. I think I have a Great Rune active right now. Yeah, so I'll take a quick look here and see how this stacks up. I'll get rid of the Great Rune. The stats, the mind that we have also is deliberate, by the way, so we have just enough to cast all of our buffs and invasions without needing to flask in the middle, and that's on purpose, just because it's hard to apply this many buffs in PvP. So we do typically Golden Vow first. We've got more time on that. The Blessing of Erdtree, those are both 90 seconds getting multiplied by the Old Lord's Talisman. We then do Light, which has 60 seconds, but it does not get a benefit from the Old Lord Talisman. I'm not sure if that's just a oversight on FromSoft's part, but it's worth noting. I then drink my Wondrous Physic, now that I've got the healing already in place, and then usually I'll leave my spell selected on Heal from Afar so I can really quickly just press right on the D-pad heal and then swap back. We've also got the option to, if somebody's running away from us and one-shot, switch to Hone Bolt and just quickly swap the right side, get a snipe from afar when they try to use their flask, hopefully snagging us the kill. Also, Light of Miquella is in here. Again, we're taking advantage of the fact that we have max faith and got insane scaling on our seal. You can use that to sometimes snipe people that are just clustering in an area. The Minor Erdtree is really helpful as well because it only lasts 30 seconds. However, it lets us completely rule the Wondrous Physics drain you through the blood-sucking tier. We actually can just sit here in it if people are playing passive and use the opportunity to heal up. It doesn't matter if the Blessing of the Erdtree has fallen off, you'll still get the heal. I mean, obviously we don't want to be doing that because we're burning off our Wondrous Physic time, but sometimes when they're playing really passive, it's nice to take the breather and just get a free, fully healed opportunity. You can feel free to change up the spells. I do like what I have here, though. Giant Golden Arc is really good right before you initiate. You can follow your own arc. Typically, I'll lead them, so if they're like circling me, I'll shoot it ahead and I'll run ahead. It forces them to roll and be somewhat clumsy with the timing. Flame Cleanse Me, you can get rid of that if you don't need it. I just had it on for where I was, but other options might be like a cheaper heal, maybe like just the base heal or great heal. That way you have a lower FP cost option, or you can run another holy damage spell like the Discus of Light. Other stuff like that is really good. It's your call really on that last talisman slot. Fire Coil is another interesting mention because it gets S and faith scaling, so again, given our build has that option. I wouldn't recommend using the Boiled Crab very often. Again, you're trying to keep your Sword of Light build on. You'll also notice with these armor sets here, not only does it have a great aesthetic for the build itself, but it lets us hit that 89 poise breakpoint. So there's a lot of attacks that we can poise through now. And yeah, that's basically how the build works. I'll do some more clips here. Figure it might help to take a look and see how much damage the build does in PvE. I also forgot to mention too that sometimes I might actually take the Crusade Insignia or the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, because these both benefit AR directly. So if you feel like you need a little bit more damage and the poise itself is not going to do anything, like if you're against colossal weapons or whatever, and you're not going to be able to poise the trade anyways, then you might as well just take more damage. Crusade Insignia is preferable at 15%. You just have to make sure you're camping near some enemy mobs, so they proc it right as you are ready to move in. You want to make sure you get your buffs in early, just before they arrive, and then hopefully this gets triggered without too much waste of time, and you can run in. But let's take a look and see how much AR we can get in PvE. So keep in mind, it's about, I think it's like about 25% less in PvP, just when you factor in all the reduced value items. So let's take a look. We'll Golden Vow. Not going to worry about the healing spell, it doesn't really matter, so we'll do light. And then the big one, which is the double tier benefit. So we're at 1216 when we factor in light on our coated swords. Keep in mind on the graph there, you've got 1216, 1216. The Sword of Light gets less of a benefit because it's partial physical. So yeah, 2 swords, each hitting for 1216. Massive amounts of damage. You're basically hitting like a great sword, but way faster recoveries. You've got a thrust, by the way, on your crouching R1. That's where you get your really easy roll catch punishes. So resist here to do the running ones. The running doubles L1 I find a little bit too long, so I try to stay away from that one. And it's too bad we don't have a running heavy, but thrust, but c'est la vie. Maybe just one other note too that I'll show you is just how much healing you have accessible to you. So I'm gonna pretend that I've burned out the entire buffing stage and started the PvP situation. So I would have used a flask in order to get back to full FP. Let's take a look at how many of these heal from afar as we can do before we run out of our FP. We fall a little bit short here of getting 2. Alas, we don't have any more points to spare, but I would consider you're going to use that in a buff. Once you've needed to heal from afar, you probably need to refresh your buffs anyway. So we'll go ahead and do another flask. So we would have had a total of 4. We would have used 1 at the very beginning of the fight, so that would have left us with 3, meaning that we get 3 times 2, plus some leeway in the middle in order to do Ashes of War, rebuffing certain things. So long story short, you basically get 3 times 2. So you get 6 flasks that pretty much heal your entire health bar. So we really don't need to be relying on our Estus for heals if we can help it. We should always try to get space and just do a heal from afar and preserve our red flask for situations where we're like getting in the middle of a fight and we need just a quick heal rather than having time to do a spell. Although the spell is pretty quick, there is a slightly quicker advantage using the red Estus, also because you can walk and gain just a tiny bit more distance, which can sometimes make or break the difference on whether or not you get punished. But just anytime you run around corners, casting a heal from afar, great option. And swapping back requires 2 right D-pad pushes. You could play around with swapping this. I just really like the fact that after my buffs and then my Sword of Light, I'm just 1 swap onto the coated sword.